From bartender to ex-wife, my life imploded when my mother-in-law called. The phone rang, shattering the quiet I'd finally managed to build. The caller ID was unfamiliar, but something twisted in my gut, a premonition of disaster about to unfold. When I answered, a voice laced with desperation and a hint of venom hissed, "Lana, this is Patricia Gilmore. Your husband is in trouble, except he wasn't my husband anymore. Not for to agonizing years. My name is Lana, and before I became collateral damage in a high-stakes game of political ambition and family secrets, I was just a girl pouring drinks at Joe's bar downtown. Nothing glamorous, just a way to pay the bills and keep busy." That's where Daniel, with his easy smile and deceptively genuine charm, first strolled into my life. It was a Thursday night, and he was with a gaggle of boisterous friends. He leaned against the bar, that mischievous glint in his eye. "Hey," he drawled, his voice a smooth melody. "What's good here besides the view?" I shot him a practiced, unimpressed look. "The whiskey," I replied curtly. He chuckled, unfazed. "Let's make it to then," he added, flashing that smile again. As I poured his drinks, I couldn't help but notice the way he watched me, not with the usual leering gaze, but with genuine curiosity. "So, you come here often?" I asked, breaking the ice. "First time, actually," he confessed. "My friend said this place has the best service in town." He let his eyes linger on mine. Guess they were right. He told me about his college days, the privileged world I could only imagine. I told him about growing up in this town, the hard work, the simple pleasures. "You're not like the usual crowd in here," I commented, more curious and judgmental. He raised an eyebrow. "Thanks, I guess," I retorted. "You're not to bad yourself. For a rich boy." He laughed, a sound that somehow felt genuine. "Rich boy? How? Trust me, having money isn't all it's cracked up to be." His friends interrupted then, dragging him back into their boisterous circle. He stood up, tossing a 50 on the bar. "Maybe I'll find the right company if I come back here," he said, his eyes locking on mine one last time. And just like that, he was gone, leaving me with a lingering scent of expensive cologne and a flutter of something unexpected in my chest. Daniel started showing up at the bar every single night after that. At first, I figured he was just another bored guy killing time with a beer and some small talk. But then the talks grew longer, deeper, more personal. He opened up about his family, his life under the constant spotlight. "My dad's pretty big into politics," he said with a casual shrug, as if it were no big deal. "And Mom, well, she's a housewife. Keeps everything running smoothly at home." There was a vulnerability there, something real that I couldn't quite place. And despite my better judgment, I found myself looking forward to those evenings when he'd show up, that hopeful smile on his face. Then, one night, he came in looking serious, his usual smile nowhere in sight. "Lana," he began, hesitating slightly. "I've been thinking, how about we go out tomorrow? Somewhere nice." It was sudden, but not unwelcome. "Like a date?" I asked, a hopeful tremor in my voice. He grinned. "Yeah, a date." That date led to another and another. Before I knew it, we were seeing each other every day. Daniel talked about his life, the constant pressure, the expectations, and I shared mine, the dreams I had shelved, the reality of living paycheck to paycheck. He seemed to be drawn to the normalcy of my life. "I love the high life," he admitted one late night, "but I also love this realness." He brushed off my concerns with a casual wave of his hand. "Things will change, Lana. You'll see." Then came the night he wanted me to meet his parents. I was a bundle of nerves, my hands clammy, my stomach churning. We drove up to their mansion, a sprawling estate that looked like it belonged in a movie. His mother, Patricia, greeted me with a tight smile. "So, a waitress," she said, her tone dripping with thinly veiled disapproval. His father, Gerald, was more welcoming, slapping Daniel on the back. "Lana, dear, it's refreshing to see someone from real life. You're just what we need." A bridge to the common man. I didn't know whether to be flattered or offended. The evening was a minefield of subtle insults and thinly veiled jabs. Mrs. Gilmore couldn't resist sniping comments under her breath about my simplicity and lack of polish. At one point, she clearly had enough. Standing up so abruptly she nearly knocked over her wine glass. "I will not stand for this," she declared, before storming out of the room. Mr. Gilmore just winked at me across the table, a gesture that was supposed to reassure me, but instead felt like I was being swept into a game I didn't know how to play. "Don't you worry, Lana," he said, his voice smooth and practiced. "Everything will be just fine." Weeks later, Daniel got down on one knee, his eyes shining with a mixture of love and desperation. "Lana," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "marry me, and let's show them all how it's done." Blinded by love, and perhaps a naive desire to prove everyone wrong, I said yes. The wedding was anything but the quiet affair I'd hoped for. He insisted on a grand ceremony, something that would make headlines, something that would be perfect for the campaign. Standing there in a dress fancier than anything I'd ever worn, with cameras flashing in my face as I tried to keep my smile from faltering. I felt like a puppet on a string. Mr. Gilmore, playing the gracious father-in-law to perfection, beamed for the cameras. "See, folks," he boomed, "this is what real love looks like. Unity across different worlds." I glanced over at my parents, their faces a mixture of pride and unease. They weren't used to this kind of spectacle, and frankly, neither was I. As Mrs. Gilmore leaned in during the photo, her smile strained and unnatural, she whispered through clenched teeth, "Smile, Lana. Today, we're all family." After the spectacle, Daniel and I moved into a luxury apartment, a wedding gift from his parents, located in one of the city's most exclusive buildings. The gilded cage. It didn't take long for the cracks to appear. Daniel's nights out with his friends became more frequent, fueled by expensive liquor and the intoxicating allure of the high life. Mrs. Gilmore took it upon herself to drop by unannounced, her visits always accompanied by a barrage of unsolicited advice and thinly veiled criticism. "This isn't some roadside diner, Lana," she'd sneer, surveying our impeccably decorated living room with a disdainful eye. "You need to keep a better eye on Daniel. Look at him." "And what exactly do you suggest I do, Mrs. Gilmore?" I asked, trying to keep the frustration from my voice. "Change him," she snapped. "Don't be smart with me, Lana. You need to take control. Otherwise, you're just as much to blame." The air was always thick with tension between us, a constant reminder that I would never truly belong in their world. That night, I confronted Daniel about his mother's comments. "Your mom thinks I'm not doing enough to keep you in line," I said, my voice trembling slightly. His reaction was immediate and defensive. "Are you going to listen to her?" he demanded. "Let's not let her get between us, Lana. I love you. We'll figure this out together." But as the weeks rolled on, nothing changed. Daniel's assurances felt more and more hollow, his promises empty. Living the high life wasn't all it was cracked up to be, not by a long shot. I found myself constantly tidying our massive apartment, trying to maintain some semblance of order in the chaos that was our marriage. Meanwhile, Daniel, with no job on the horizon, continued to indulge in his extravagant lifestyle, fueled by his family's wealth and his own sense of entitlement. His mother, the queen of high society, continued to dictate our lives, always knowing best, always judging. It was a normal day at the bar when she decided to bring her highfalutin friends for a casual lunch. Mrs. Gilmore waved me over with a flick of her wrist, as if I were a servant. "Lana, darling, could you hurry up? We don't have all day and we expect proper service, even in this establishment." I forced a smile, my hands clenched into fists. "Make sure the glasses are clean," one of her cronies cackled. "We wouldn't want to catch anything." Mrs. Gilmore chimed in, her voice dripping with condescension. "Yes, Lana, it's a shame you don't use your husband's money to better yourself. Maybe some classes in etiquette or a seminar on how to be a supportive wife." Keeping my voice steady, I replied, "I appreciate the advice, Mrs. Gilmore. I'll give it all the consideration it deserves." I walked away, feeling scrutinized and scorned, no matter how hard I tried. Back at our apartment, the silence was a stark contrast to the chaos at the bar. Daniel was out again, undoubtedly spending money he hadn't earned. I was left alone with my thoughts, which were as cluttered as the untouched plates on our dining table. Meanwhile, I was the one paying the bills from my own tips, groceries, utilities, even the damn cable bill. His promises to get his act together and find a job were as empty as our conversations. The election season was in full swing, and I was expected to be the perfect political wife, smiling and waving at every possible public event. I wore my smile like a mask, feeling increasingly weary, increasingly trapped. It was exhausting. More than once, I found myself on the edges of these events, longing for nothing more than to run away and never look back. One evening, Mr. Gilmore pulled me aside, his eyes hard and calculating. "Lana," he said, his voice lower and urgent, "I need you to keep this up. You know, for the lifestyle." I nodded, my stomach churning. "Of course, Mister, I understand." It wasn't just a campaign that was putting pressure on me. Daniel's behavior had escalated from neglect to outright destructiveness. He'd come home late, if he came home at all, often drunk and sometimes barely able to stand. Then came a night that changed everything, the night that shattered the last vestiges of hope I clung to. Daniel stumbled through the door well past midnight, his face ashen, his eyes wild with panic. He collapsed onto the sofa, his hands shaking uncontrollably. "Lana," he blurted out, his voice thick with fear, "I've screwed up. Big time." He'd lost money, a lot of money, to some really bad people, gamblers with dangerous friends. "I lost it at the casino, and they're not the type to wait for their cash." My stomach twisted at his words, a cold dread washing over me. "How much?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He averted his gaze, shame etched on his face. He needed my help. He begged me. He couldn't ask his parents, he said. He grabbed my hands, his grip desperate. "I swear, Lana, if you help me with this. I know I have been a terrible husband. Please. Despite the anger, the disappointment, the betrayal, I couldn't let him face this alone. Daniel, I'll help you, I said. But you have to turn things around. I took out a loan the next day, putting my own financial future on a line to save him from his own recklessness. And for a brief, fleeting moment, it seemed like things were actually getting better. Daniel was like a man reborn, helping around the house, being attentive, even showing me affection. We spent evenings together, talking about plans for the future, dreams we could build together. Maybe we should think about having a kid, he suggested one night as we cleaned up after dinner, his eyes shining with a hopeful light. I looked at him, surprised but not unhappy at the thought. Really? Do you think we're ready? He smiled, pulling me close. Yeah, I do. I mean, we're getting back on track, right? A fresh start. I wanted to believe him, desperately, but that illusion shattered the night I came home from a double shift at the bar, tossing my keys on the counter, my body aching for just a few hours of sleep before doing it all over again. I found Daniel passed out on our bed, snoring loudly, with two girls I'd never seen, to fall cold up beside him, bottles and glasses littering the nightstand. My heart hammered against my ribcage as a cold rage settled in my gut. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and started recording. The camera's light cut through the darkness, illuminating the scene of betrayal. Daniel, I said, my voice sharp with fury. Who are these girls? He stirred, blinking blearily at the light. It's not a big deal, he mumbled, slurring his words. We do this sometimes when you're at work. That was it, the final straw, the ultimate betrayal, the sorrow, the disbelief, the anger all coalesced into a burning resolve. I stepped out of the room, dialed Mr. Gilmore's number, and waited for him to pick up. Lana, what's wrong? His voice was cautious, instantly alert. Mr. Gilmore, I'm done. I just caught Daniel in our bed with the other women. I've recorded everything. He was at the apartment within the hour, his face a mask of controlled fury as he glanced at the still unconscious figures in my bed. Daniel had woken up by then, looking sheepish and scared as his father berated him in hushed, venomous tones. Look what you've done, Mr. Gilmore turned to me, his eyes narrowed, his mind clearly working overtime to contain the damage. Let's keep this quiet, for everyone's sake. He sized me up, calculating my worth, my potential for damage. What do you need? He wasn't asking about my feelings, my pain, my humiliation. He was asking about the price of my silence. Move away, he continued, his voice low and menacing. Start fresh somewhere else. Can you do that? Yes, I said simply. There was nothing left for me here. The divorce papers came through quietly, discreetly. Mr. Gilmore kept his word. The money was in my account within days, enough to pay off the loan and give me a fresh start. Settling into my new life in another city felt like breathing fresh air after being submerged underwater for too long. The day I moved into my new apartment in a peaceful neighborhood, the first thing I did after unpacking was block every number associated with my old life. Every ring was a potential hand reaching out, trying to drag me back into that mess, and I wasn't about to let that happen. Then I went out and bought myself a car. Nothing too fancy, but sleek and new, something just for me. A few days later, I landed a job as an administrator at a local restaurant. It was a step up from waitressing, a sign that I was finally moving forward. The owner, a weary woman named Carla with a sharp tongue and a no-nonsense attitude, took me under her wing. You new to town? Carla asked on my first day, her gaze a mixture of curiosity and caution. I replied, yeah, just moved in. Carla nodded, her eyes assessing. Well, here's your desk, and here are your responsibilities. You keep things running smooth, and we'll get along just fine. I said, I appreciate it, Carla. I won't let you down. The job was busy, filled with the usual chaos of restaurant life, but I thrived on the structure it brought to my days. I was making my own money, controlling my own fate. It felt good, honest, and real. Encouraged by Carla's blunt but fair management style, I decided to enroll in a local college. I wanted more than just to escape my past. I wanted to build a future for myself, on my own terms. This time, I was doing this for me, and no one else. One evening, as I was locking up the restaurant, Carla stopped by my desk. Heard you hitting the books at night? She said, a hint of approval in her voice. That's good. Keep that brain working. I smiled, grateful for her recognition, trying to figure it's never too late to start fresh. Right? Carla replied with a knowing nod. Damn right. You ever need help with anything, you let me know. I know a thing or two about keeping a business afloat. I relished the normalcy, the mundane moments that I used to take for granted. Sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sunset felt like a luxury. The city lights sparkled in the distance, each one a reminder of where I'd been and where I was heading. I realized just how much I had changed, how much stronger I had become. I was sitting in my living room, cozy and warm, a book forgotten on my lap, when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, and hesitating for a split second, I answered. The voice came through, chilling me to the bone. Lana, This is Patricia Gilmore. Your husband is in trouble. I was taken aback. Mrs. Gilmore, slow down. What are you talking about? What trouble? I don't know how Patricia got my number, but it all came down to one phone call and it went down as follows. An unknown friend of Danielle called me. He said Daniel got into a fight with a policeman in a bar. I had to transfer money to keep him out of jail. I took it from our savings and Gerald doesn't know yet. Why weren't you there for him? Mrs. Gilmore, listen to me very carefully. Daniel and I have been divorced for 2 years. I haven't seen or spoken to him since. There was a pause on the other end. What are you talking about? Why didn't anyone tell me? You didn't know because it was meant to be kept quiet for the family's sake, for the election, and I'm sorry you were left out, but I am no longer part of Daniel's life or your family. And what happened to the policeman and Daniel? For voice cracked, laughing softly, I tried to find some humor in the absurdity of the situation. Mrs. Gilmore, you've been scammed. There's no doubt about it. Players' cameras probably made up the whole story about the policeman just to trick you out of your money. Her voice quivered. Scammed. Can't you just lend me some money to put back before Gerald finds out? Please, Lana. Mrs. Gilmore, it's not my place anymore. I've moved on. You need to handle this with your family. I reply, you can help, but you choose not to. Play it deep. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I must go now. I hung up before she could reply. I picked up my phone again and blocked Mrs. Gilmore to feel that I was truly free, now no longer entangled in the web of deception and greed that had once defined my life. Did I handle this situation correctly? Was I wrong to refuse to help my former mother-in-law, even if she was the one who made my life a living nightmare? Should I have offered some kind of support? Or was it best to cut all ties and protect the life I've worked so hard to build? I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspectives, knowing what you know about everything that had happened. So please share your thoughts and opinions.